Let's go into Tesla's master plan here for cryptocurrency and maybe where Elon is going. We're going to dive deep into that today. My name is Paul Barron. This is TechPath. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. If you like this video, make sure, and you've been watching some of our stuff, make sure and share this one. This is going to be a good one. And it's really going to be a breakdown on our Market Mover series. The way we do our Market Movers, as a reminder, is we dive into a ton of data, some of our own data, and a lot of additional sentiment data that's being utilized by a variety of different platforms. Break that down into some news, and then hopefully on the other end, come out with something that's going to help you on your process of making decisions or following a particular technology or scenario like what we're dealing with right now with cryptocurrency. As a reminder, this is not investment advice. It's an educational and research package that's based on our own findings and our own options of what we use to research with. We are not financial advisors and highly recommend you do your own research and due diligence, whether it's public or private, in your investments. Let's kind of jump into it today. Everybody knows, I'm sure by now everybody's kind of on top of this. If you're watching this channel, you're an edgy individual that understands technology and most likely understands cryptocurrency, and of course understands the sway that Elon Musk has on the business. So we're going to drop into Tesla suspends Bitcoin use. We'll also go into kind of the Doge and maybe the Doge aspect of this, and is there a master plan here for Tesla and how this might play out. We're going to talk a little bit about carbon footprints, because there are some, in my research last night, in the throes of after the post tweet of Elon, after I settled down and understand, hey, this might actually play out differently. There was a ton of research, and thanks to all the Twitter team out there, the TechPath army that helped me late in the hours last night to put together some of this material. That was great. Got a lot of great sharing material. And also, can Bitcoin overcome this small setback from Elon Musk? It's kind of odd to be saying that right now, is that there's one individual that has such a dominant position in our society that a single tweet can take down hundreds of millions of dollars in gains in just a single tweet. It's going to be interesting to watch. Let's talk about the impact itself, which these were news stories coming out of CoinDesk. CoinDesk was at it hard this morning. Obviously, Bitcoin plunges as Tesla halts payments over the environmental concerns. This, of course, is the whole scenario. Also, they were already on the fact that Bitcoin started to make a bounce after Tesla hit the pullback switch, but it may not be over, according to the analyst over there from CoinDesk. I want to kind of follow along also on the tweets that happened last night and kind of just some of the variances that flowed from that. Obviously, this is the tweet that pretty much put the world on edge last night when it comes to cryptocurrency, as Tesla did suspend vehicle purchasing. When you think about it, though, this is kind of the thing that I'm not sure a lot of people really understand. I can't imagine, and I've seen some preliminary data on this, that there has been very, very few people who've actually utilized Bitcoin to purchase Teslas. With that being the case, I think the bigger factor is that Tesla may not necessarily use Bitcoin as a store of value. Now, that's a different scenario as opposed to Tesla not accepting Bitcoin for buying a Tesla vehicle. So the variances there are quite a bit different. But one thing that he did say in his tweet that I thought was very interesting, and that is Tesla will not be selling any Bitcoin. I wonder if he sold any Bitcoin prior to sending out this tweet. We'll find that out probably in his Q1 or when this Q2 data comes out. But back to what I'm saying here is Tesla will not be selling any Bitcoin, and we intend to use it for transactions as soon as mining transitions to more sustainable energy. We also are looking at other cryptocurrencies that use 1% of Bitcoin's energy transaction. This is interesting when you also look at his respondent tweet, which is, I think, happened slightly timed. Let me look at the time stamp on these. One was at 6:06 p.m., and then the other one was about 3 hours into that night. And what he did was he kind of validated what was happening, where the energy usage trend over the past few months has been really spiking on Bitcoin. And then, of course, Michael Saylor, pretty much the largest Bitcoin maximalist, jumps in, ironic because no incremental energy is used in Bitcoin. transaction. The energy is used to secure the crypto asset network, and the net impact on fossil fuel consumption over time will be negative, all things considered. That, of course, is Saylor kind of bouncing back. And if you kind of think about where Michael Saylor and Elon were, months ago, they were almost like in lockstep here, because we were seeing, some very unification between what cryptocurrency was doing and the strategy for what maybe Tesla was trying to put into play. After the Q1 earnings, and I've said this on a couple of my recent episodes, is that I think there is a bigger plan here with Tesla. When you think about, Zach over at Tesla, Master of Coin over at Tesla, which is their chief financial officer, there's a lot happening, I think, in the wings here, and there's a lot of working elements here. Now, I also want, before I want to jump into kind of where I'm going with this and where Tesla's master plan is in terms of potential crypto, I want to show you some historical scenarios here of Bitcoin's history of these ebb and flows. And if you look at the Musk effect, and I want to kind of just show you a few little elements there. They had the PayPal move into Bitcoin and what that meant in terms of spikes. Then you had Tesla right there in the center of the screen. Now Bitcoin's now buy Tesla to buy Tesla. That takes another hike. We had the 6.24% jump for Joy, which was another major increase. And then tapping the new version, which is basically the fork that the tech fork that Bitcoin is undergoing right now, that essentially is one of the first elements to really advance the technology, being the blockchain technology. And then boom, there you have it. The power of Elon Musk, and the Bitcoin drop down last night to under $50,000. That's kind of the scenario here, but in all cases, we've seen a little bit of a curve and a bounce back that has moved it into the next phase. And I want to jump over to my trading view chart here for a second. And I'm going to go over here to this chart that you're seeing on screen right here. And basically, we did some analysis on this last night. Let me kind of just jump in really close. So this essentially is the Tesla drop, as you can see right here, falling off the cliff. But additionally, what you have right here is, let me jump that up to about a 32 so you guys can see that. Sentiment rise during that period of time. This is the point that I want to get at, is during that period of time, we actually saw sentiment rise in a very tight time frame from 78.9 to 84.7 on Bitcoin, on acquisition of Bitcoin. So what that tells me, when you look at some of the sentiment data, whether you're using something like Trade the Chain or others like that, and we use everything from Speech IQ, Trade the Chain, and a whole host of tools to track sentiment data against basically a database of terms and tools that we've built in a natural language processing database to basically ping this off the industry and where everything is happening, which is mostly on Twitter, though we do see more transaction or more dialogue happening in other platforms as well. But the point is this went up during a down time. So that tells me that we have a very good potential to see Tesla Bitcoin start to make its way out of this position, which is, if you're a Bitcoin investor or a Bitcoin maximalist, this is good news, because I think this is a buying opportunity, as many people were probably buying up Bitcoin last night, and maybe even into today as it hovers around 50K. The point, though, is that the opportunity here, I think, is really going to see that Bitcoin, even with Elon Musk, who I would say is at this point in time in our society, quite possibly the most influential person on the planet, more so than maybe even a president or a nation state. He has that much power globally in the sense of what people do in terms of following what he's saying. And this is pretty interesting. And I think it's because Elon is so tied in to one, technology, and he's so tied into these big overarching ideas of where Tesla is trying to go. And I think that's the thing that really makes Tesla and Elon very unique in terms of how they play things out in our kind of the game of social media and its influence on the markets. I also want to jump over to another TradingView chart, which was one that I did on, is Doge going to be the new Bitcoin? So this was a chart we pulled up again last night in Doge. So again, let me blow this up right here to a little bit larger. You guys can see it. Sustainable sentiment. Now, this is something that we are tracking now that is different than traditional sentiment. What we've done is built what we call a data credential that starts to pack in a series of terms around a key term that we're tracking to be able to identify influence and sentiment on some of this. And this is being done and has been done for years by us for some other industries. We've done it in food, we've done it in some other major categories. We don't sell that data, but we utilize it as a tool set to kind of guide our track here from an editorial standpoint, what we report on, what we kind of dive into. But what was interesting about Doge was that sustainable sentiment on Doge, let me zoom in on this a little bit, really got into what I think was a very, very interesting point, because the sentiment rise while Doge was dropping right here was on a huge upward trend. So there's two things that this could be, that this could mean. One is it could mean that Doge was one of the, and is one of those kinds of coins that does not utilize a lot of carbon assets, and that it is kind of the alpha dog, so to speak, of the cryptocurrencies that potentially Tesla could alt to as a potential acceptance. Now, don't jump to conclusions here if you're listening to this and you just tune out of the video for right now. I don't necessarily think that this will be the coin that Tesla is going to reveal and make it kind of the default to Bitcoin in terms of, whether it's using it for transactions or using it for being able to buy a Tesla. Even though I do think that Doge does have an opportunity, just because of Elon's love affair with Doge, to actually be part of the community of where Tesla is going in the crypto strategy. And I do believe they have a strategy when it comes to cryptocurrency. Now, before I get into where I think that strategy is going, I want to kind of reveal some other areas. And this is a report on the BTC Impact, Bitcoin Impact. I put the link down there. I'm going to have the guys put a link in our show notes of that particular, where you can find this PDF. Because this really is a report that goes in very deep on the impact of Bitcoin mining. And as you can see, China being pretty much the number one section at 78.89% of Bitcoin being mined in China. And this has a relevance to a theory and kind of some research that we've done. And we've been doing some of this research over time, and it just kind of came to a head last night during all of this. North America at 6.8%, and then Europe and others at 14.08%. But follow that link if you want to take a look at this full report. It's about a 50-page environmental impact report that was done by several entities. This was by Nature Communications. They really drill down into a lot of very interesting things. Now, if Elon was doing all of this research prior to purchasing Bitcoin, because I can't imagine, if you're in a sustainable energy company, CEO, and you're looking at all of these different factors of saving the planet and climate crisis and all those kinds of things, I kind of feel like that should have been, or could have been, maybe research that was put out prior to actually entering the Bitcoin space. So that is a question I have. Another scenario here was, all right, well, I'm like, okay, well, so what other categories could be implicated here that could have a bearing on how Tesla plays this out? And one of the things that we found was a piece over here by a company called Zadoya. And Zadoya is a small startup that's basically developing a energy resource system that helps drop commercial entity carbon footprints by masses. And if you look at kind of where they're going and what they've been tracking, which is total consumption for the banks during a year, and these three metrics, which they're rounding down to basically 26, and I'm getting this right, 26 terawatt hours on servers. If you follow our channel, you understand how much we're into batteries and where energy consumption can be utilized in EVs. 26 terawatt hours is absolutely insane. Going to 87 terawatt hours on branches and 26 terawatt hours on ATMs for a total of 140 terawatt hours per year in the banking system. That's not necessarily the full story, because this is basically saying that Bitcoin takes up about a quarter of the banking industry currently. The other thing that came into our research, which was a bigger impact, and this was banking on climate crisis. This is another huge report that goes into fossil fuel finance report and where it hits. Now, this one is very important if you guys are really looking into cryptocurrency and sustainable investing and the kind of things we talk about here on TechPath. You need to follow that link that we'll drop in the show notes, because this is an unbelievable report on the impact of banks on the climate crisis. And I want to kind of break down some of these. This is called fossil financing. And this is where banks start to roll into supporting fossil fuels. And really, beyond just the access of my banking system cost me this much to utilize, this is all data coming out of the Paris Accord. And if you look at JP Morgan Chase, who is basically the biggest offender, still the worst in terms of coal policy points, oil and gas policy points, and total policy score. These are the things that basically the Paris Accord rates against companies and countries to be able to establish where you are in terms of compliance or being able to achieve climate neutral positioning over the next decade. Citi, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, these are the four horsemen that really have the biggest problems out there in terms of funding and supplanting the fossil fuel and coal industry that is really causing much more impact than I think a lot. What's happened is either, and this is very interesting too, because sometimes I think Elon talks in code, especially on his Twitter account. Sometimes I think he does things to create these rabbit holes for not only investigative journalists and analysts, but also countries to literally chase down and start to think, what is going on in this area that's causing this to occur? It makes you start to think about things that you typically had not really put into play in the past. So that's a big one. I also want to flow into some of the breakdown banks that are also offenders in this area. And let's go to this RBC, which is the worst in Canada, MUFG, worst in Asia, Barclays, worst in Europe, and then second worst in Asia is Mizuho. All, as you can see, really having a struggle in being able to get to anything that is even close to performing in the Paris Accord, Climate Accord programs to be able to meet carbon neutrality by 2030. Then you move into some others, which are the sands bankers. So world's top tar sands banker is TD. Still supporting oil majors is BNP. Scotiabank, very bad policies. And then the world top LNG banker being Morgan Stanley. All of these things really play out into one thing, and that is that we have many more problems outside of where Bitcoin is going on how sustainability and renewable energy can be used. So I wanted to jump to something before I get into Tesla's master plan on sustainable business. Exclusive Tesla seeks entry into U.S. renewable fuel credit market. This is very interesting. This was released yesterday. And essentially what it is, Tesla is one of 8 companies that are basically vying for these renewable credit market opportunities from the Biden administration's march toward new zero emission goals. Now, what this means, if you think about this, is that Tesla could have some absolute new potentials in terms of these new renewable energy credits that go beyond just the credits toward purchasing a vehicle, but actually the support of the renewable credit market, which is established in the mid-2000s to boost investment in the U.S. Biofuel industry. This is where it was started. This is something that is moving on, and now Tesla's application will likely be tied to the production of electrically associated with biogas. So what does this mean? I understand. This gets a little complicated here. So the idea is that if Elon is really thinking big here, and I know he is, he's looking at the next play. The next play for being able to solve some of the big problems. Maybe his venture into cryptocurrency was an exploratory mission to discover how all of this works. And what he discovered was that the evolution of where our banking system, our monetary system, and all of the support that we just talked about is actually a massive hit on the global climate crisis. And when you look at all of that and then play into where Elon's going with this, and then add in the fact that they're out there on the line list for these renewable energy credits, is it possible that Tesla is trying to look at replacing China as the world's leader in crypto mining? Bear with me for just a second. If you think about two companies here, if you have been following Peter Thiel and what he has done, remember if you don't know who Peter Thiel was, he was basically one of the original horsemen over at PayPal, the PayPal mafia. Well, that was also at the same time that Elon was there. So you have Peter Thiel and Elon basically in the same camp. Peter Thiel is now going into the cryptocurrency mining industry. They're putting basically crypto mines in West Texas, which is one of the largest resources for cheap electric and also wind and solar. So that's another opportunity. Here's the other play that Tesla could be coming into. And when you look at the master plan, I want to cut to this quickly on, you need to look at the alternative solutions in digital assets. And what I mean by that is that if Tesla were to make a play at this, maybe what Tesla has in mind is to create an element or some sort of function within Tesla's overall company architecture to be able to actually start mining or enable mining in the United States. Remember, the United States and China are at odds. Cryptocurrency potentially one of the world's next major steps in monetary financial system, and the US is behind. Could Elon have that red phone right to Biden's office? I'm sure he had it to Trump's office. Could he be in the position to where he could be playing into trying to say, I think I can solve this? And meaning being able to solve and getting down to net zero in terms of crypto mining in general. That is the big play that Tesla could be going into. The other thing is they could be also offering up the alternative for these low and or carbon neutral coins to be the exchange rate for and or possibly the transaction currency that Tesla uses in the world and economic stage, which means Doge could be accepted. The other thing that kind of points into this are the carbon performers, which are these altcoins. And that's going to be everything from Cardano, XRP, Algorand, etc. There's several that really flow into that either low or no carbon footprint out there when it comes to performance in terms of a cryptocurrency. So there's a lot of that moving in this direction. And the last element here is Bitcoin support coming. What I mean by that is, could Elon be structuring a model that could be supporting Bitcoin miners? Because remember, these miners are just going to go where the cheapest energy is to be able to mine Bitcoin. Right now, that happens to be China. If you look at the access to cheap electricity over there, the amount of types of electricity that are being utilized, which in most cases are sustainable sources, that's a big one. But in the United States, that's a different game. It's very difficult to do that, which is why China was chosen by many miners to be able to actually run their businesses in China to be able to do this. So if Elon can create an infrastructure over here in the United States to essentially allow for this to happen, getting down to net zero, which is where you get into solar, all the megapack potential, the stored energy capacity, obviously the renewable credits here we have with the electrification of vehicles. This has so many spinning parts that where Tesla could be going with this. I would not put it past Tesla to be looking at a major move into either the cryptocurrency mining space or possibly creating their own cryptocurrency. And this is where it gets really crazy, because if that is the fact, then that's a bigger problem for Mr. Musk, because you're dealing now with an SEC, especially after making these kinds of market sways that Tesla and Elon has the ability to do. The last one, of course, is Doge for Dojo. He's already kind of implicated this on several of his tweets, and Dojo is very close, I think, to becoming a reality, that being the supercomputer for Tesla in the AI field, which I've talked about on this show before. I'll try to put a link into one of our videos where we really drill down into what we think Dojo could do, especially around cryptocurrency. This is where all of this kind of plays in together. There are a lot of moving parts here. The one thing that I think everyone who's watching this channel is wondering, is Bitcoin going to recover? Yeah, I think Bitcoin's going to be just fine. Does it see the kind of ascent that we anticipated? This may slow the bull run, and it may also thwart the top end of where Bitcoin is going to be during this bull run, and whether or not this may stretch the bull run into the later fall months, like many analysts have been predicting, is that September was kind of the month. And this could be stretching that out, possibly to give Tesla some opportunity here to release some pretty big bombs into the industry of where they're going with this. Now, could it be just, Tesla saying, hey, yeah, we're not going to use Bitcoin anymore? I mean, he's kind of that kind of individual. He's fairly aloof in terms of, but I just don't put it past Elon that there's much more into what's happening here. And I know it's speculation, but listen, you have to, when you go in and investigate these things and really dive into what's happening, you have to look at the potential alternatives. And typically all you have to do is follow one thing, the money. If you can do that, in most cases, it's going to point you in the direction that usually you'll end up with anyway. So those are kind of the things we break down here on these market movers. We'll continue to dive into this because I think there's going to be a continuous element of what coins could benefit from this, because I think there's going to be an interim phase here for the altcoins. And if you don't know, the altcoins have actually been performing fairly well in comparison to what Bitcoin is dealing with, which is ironic. But at the same time, Bitcoin's market share percentage versus altcoins was at an all-time low. So that also makes sense in terms of how that market play is actually happening out there. There's a lot happening. It's only going to get more crazy, I think, as we are moving forward in the next few weeks. I think we're getting ready to see a lot of new activity. So stay tuned right here on TechPath for, we'll try to get to you as quickly as you can, whether it's sleepless nights, whatever we have to do to get this material out to you, get the research done, and hopefully get you in a position to make really great decisions and also understand where the technology of our world is moving to. If you're listening to us over on the podcast, make sure and give us a rating. And if you're listening here or watching here on YouTube, make sure and like this video. We've had a few here recently, one that maybe some of you didn't like so much. That's okay. We understand. We understand who the Army is. And that's okay. We love to present those counter opinions from time to time that really kind of sheds light on different viewpoints in the environment. And you have to kind of take a look at that. But anyway, if you have an idea for a show here on TechPath, shoot us an email to producer@reverendnetworks.com. You can always hit me up on Twitter @Paul Barron. I'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.